All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Psych Phyt podcast. This is season 2, and I finally started videoing, which is terrifying. So I'm very nervous, but also very excited. And I'm so glad that you're tuning in today. So let's kick it off. So I feel like I am constantly asking myself, like, what do I want to do with my life? Or like, where do I want my life to head? So I feel like I often get stuck in sort of this analysis paralysis and decision paralysis of, worrying that if I make one decision, then it means that I can't do the other thing. So I always have this, fear of missing out on a potential pathway that could happen. But by holding back on the decisions that I make, then I'm just closing all the doors that were open for me. So it's a problem that I'm grateful to have, and like a lot of us these days are grateful to have, is we have too many options, which is great. But I put off things like this, like recording my podcast, because it was never the right time, or I never had the right equipment. Like, I'm just filming this on my phone and I've got my little microphone that's clipped on, and I've always been worried that things would happen that I wouldn't be able to control, like the aeroplane that just went over. Like when I'm recording a podcast, it's so much easier to just cut that out, but I've never edited a video before, so we'll see how that turns out. But I feel like the process of just stopping and starting, like cutting out bits of the video, is going to be a lot trickier, because I feel like I might be over here, and then if I cut it, I'll be over here. So like the process is a little bit more tricky. So all those things sort of just hold me back, and I think hold a lot of people back from doing what they actually want to do and taking action. So this season 2 is all about action taking. So it's the season for taking action. And even little things, like I don't know whether to look at myself or look at the camera. So let's just see. I'm experimenting, and I am figuring it out along the way. But yeah, as I said, this season is about action taking. So, starting to film my podcast, like not having any more excuses, like, I don't have the right microphone or the right lighting. I'm just using the sun right now. And, it's the season for starting to push myself harder, both in the gym and on the footpath, like running, and running more effectively. I'll talk about later that I got my run assessed yesterday by a podiatrist. And it's also the season to start my group fitness class. So that's another thing that I've been, holding back from, because I felt like it was never the right time, or I didn't have the right resources or knowledge to start my business and to start my group fitness classes. So this is that season. So it's not only a new season of the podcast, but it's also a new season for my life and for Psych Phyt. So I thought I would start off the podcast by sort of telling you a bit about myself and, the face behind Psych Phyt, and like a brief history of Megan. So I recently celebrated my 29th birthday. So I've been on this earth 29 years. Here goes another airplane. The joys of living near the airport. I was a very like shy, nerdy kid. I'm still like fairly shy, but I'm a lot better than I used to be. I loved school, and you know, I had a really good group of friends, but any other sort of social interactions were daunting for me, and yeah, I really struggled in that area, especially as a younger kid. And I guess I always felt quite like small, like I always kept myself quite small, out of the way, you know, sort of I kept quiet. I didn't really put myself out there, or like I was afraid to take up space. So I always sort of just like stayed in the background, like don't cause any troubles, just, you know, stay out of the way. And I think that's why, as an adult, that's drawn me towards things that make me feel strong and like powerful, which is why I'm so into fitness and, you know, long distance running now. And I guess that also led me to like my adult life starting off very military focused. So ever since I was about 16, I wanted to join the Australian Defence Force. And I was in cadets, and, you know, my whole, you know, not my whole life, I still went to school, but outside of school, I was, you know, studying for my interviews for the Defence Force, and figuring out what pathway that I wanted to do within defence. So when I went through a couple of interviews. I got knocked back the first time because I was too shy and too reserved. I didn't have enough confidence. And then the second time I had my interview, I got accepted and ended up joining the military 1 week after my 18th birthday. So I was basically just thrown into the military. And cutting a complicated story short, I highly underestimated the physical requirements of the Defence Force, which seems silly, but you know, I was a kid and I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And my idea was that as soon as I'm in, like there's nothing else I need to worry about. But you know, because looking back, the training wasn't too difficult, but when I was 18 and very unfit, it was very difficult. So I ended up getting injured. I got stress fractures in my feet. So after, you know, I did 2 months of training, got injured, and then I did about 3 months of rehab. Anyway, I ended up leaving. But I always had the intention to go back, like, you know, build myself up, get stronger, get fitter, and then go back. But, you know, I didn't really understand how difficult it is to re-enlist after you've been injured. Because, yeah, they're sort of like, well, why should we rehire you if you're just going to get injured again? So, yeah, it's always been sort of on the back of my mind to re-enlist, and I have tried a few times. But basically when I left the military, I still wasn't even 19 yet. So I went traveling, as you do when you're that age, and I traveled around. I did a lot of traveling in like my sort of late teens, early 20s. I spent my 19th birthday in Greece. I spent my 21st birthday in Las Vegas, as you do. I had a white Christmas in Switzerland, and we went to Italy and France. I did that with my mum, and you know, I've done road trips along like the west coast of the USA. I've volunteered in Peru. I've hiked the Southern Alps in New Zealand. That was my most recent trip. And that was to raise money for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, which my niece has type 1 diabetes, and she's also the niece that I had on my podcast last season. And these are her earrings. I have so many of her earrings. So I thought I would wear them today. And yeah, I did lots of traveling. I in amongst that, I did a finance degree. So I initially enrolled to do a Bachelor of Business, majoring in event management, because I was going to a lot of festivals back then and I was loving it, and I thought events was the coolest thing, and I still do work in events to this day. I do think events are awesome. And through that, I got to do an internship with the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games. So that was a 3-month internship, which was super cool. I really loved that, and it sort of opened my eyes to what a job in events could be like. And yeah, it was interesting because everyone I spoke to at the Com Games, like working there, none of them had a degree in events management. So that sort of made me think like, oh, well, why am I at university doing an event management degree? So I ended up staying at uni, but I transferred my major to entrepreneurship, and then I changed it to, I think, entrepreneurship and marketing. And then finally I changed it to finance. So in my 3-year degree, I changed my major 4 times. At the same time as transferring to finance, or like very shortly after, I started reapplying for the Air Force. And yeah, through my application, it was taking a long time. I've had to do medical appointments and get records and stuff done. So I was like, okay, I'll just keep doing my finance degree until I get accepted. The day I get accepted, I'll drop uni and go wherever they need me to go. But yeah, basically I finished my degree. I still hadn't heard. I was still going through the process. Then after I graduated from my finance degree, COVID hit. So I was sort of just sitting around waiting for defence to give me an answer. Sat around for about 6 months and then heard back, actually discovered that I have low bone mineral density in my lumbar spine, which was found out through tests of why I got stress fractures. So yeah, that's unfortunate, and they didn't want me after that. So about a 2 and a bit year application just went down the drain. So then I had to turn myself to something else because I never really saw myself working in finance. I thought it was cool that I learned about the stock market and about managing money and that sort of thing, but I definitely didn't see myself as, someone selling stocks on the, at Wall Street or whatever. Like, it sounds like a cool life, but not really what I'm into. So then I was like, what should I do now? So then I started psychology, and I absolutely loved it because I'd always wanted to do psychology or learn about psychology because I love the mind and how it works and how different people think and act in different ways, and just how powerful it is. Like, yeah, it's amazing that this little mushy thing inside our head just controls everything that we do. So, but basically the reason why I hadn't ever started psychology was because I always thought that if you did a psychology degree, you became a clinical psychologist, helping people with, mental health disorders and things like that. But after my first semester of psychology, I discovered that there's like so much more to psychology than just that. And there's so many different areas of psychology. I actually want to list some of them. So there's what I'm fascinated with is sports psychology. So you can work with athletes on their performance and their mindset and dealing with stress in the environment or dealing with losses. So a lot of people don't realize that, let's say Olympic athletes, that environment of being at the Olympics is very stressful and like not very pleasurable for them at all. Like they don't really, a lot of athletes are different, but the stress and the different environment of being in the Olympics is not that fun. And, you know, there could be one athlete that's expected to get gold and they get silver, and that could really like derail them and like send them on a spiral. Whereas there could be someone who wasn't expecting a medal at all and they get bronze and they're on top of the world. So, you know, looking at it from the outside, you can never really tell how an athlete's feeling. But there's like lots of different aspects to sports psychology. So you could help them in their performance side, or you can help them, you know, after they retire, like working on their identity of, you know, who am I now that I'm not an athlete? Because oftentimes athletes will start their athletic journey when they're young. So their sport or their activity is the only thing that they know and the only thing that they identify with. So when they retire, or say they get injured and can't do that anymore, like that can be quite, a really difficult event. So helping people through that as well. So that's sports psychology, and there's so much more to it as well. But there's also organizational psychology. So that's working in businesses, organizations, helping people to either perform better at work or help with job satisfaction, help with turnover and like work retention, stress at work, work-life balance, all those sort of components that fit in with work. And organizational psychs get paid a lot of money from organizations just to, you know, if they're not performing at the level that they want to perform, like they'll pay a lot of money just for someone to come in and say, okay, these are the aspects that, you know, you should be working on, or your company scored quite low in work satisfaction due to this area. So if you improve that, then, you know, or they could list ways in which you could improve satisfaction in that area, for example. So that's organizational psychology. And then an organizational psych can also be like leadership, and conducting leadership workshops. And then there's things like forensic psychology. That would be pretty intense. You know, either working with victims and helping people through that process, or I think would be even more intense would be working with what are they called? Criminals. And, you know, either helping them through their journey and why they committed, and if they're going to recommit or like likely to recommit, things like that. Or also working with people to try and figure out why they did it. So yeah, that's kind of fascinating. And then there's things like developmental psychology, which some people call child psychology, but it can also, developmental is sort of the whole range of life. So you'd also be working with the elderly, sort of how they develop in older age. But a lot of people think about it as like the child developmental stages. And yeah, helping. I don't know a lot about developmental psych, but you know, there's stages of development and helping your child develop and things like that. So also a cool area. And then there's counselling. So, you know, a counsellor is different to a psychologist, who's different to a psychiatrist. So there's different areas. So counselling, I sort of see counselling as more, I guess like more everyday issues. You know, you could have your like relationship counselling, or, you know, counselling through a difficult time in your life, that sort of thing. Whereas psychology, I see as more like you might have an anxiety disorder or depression, or bipolar disorder or something, that you would specifically see the psychologist about your condition. But it doesn't have to be that way either. But that's how I see it. A psychologist can actually diagnose your condition. And then a psychiatrist, I don't know much about it, but is more medically trained, so they can prescribe you with medication. Yeah, and then there's things like cognitive psychology. So cognitive psychology is looking more at the brain circuitry. There's neuropsychology and then there's cognitive psychology. I think they're quite different, but I can't really distinguish right now. I think neuropsychology is more looking at brain scans, and if there's a traumatic brain injury, how that's affected your behavior and how your brain works. And then cognitive psychology is things like attention span, reaction time. So like doing computer tasks where they're like, press the button when you see a flash on the screen. So like testing how fast you can react. And like perception, like can you perceive how you perceive different things. I guess that's sort of cognitive. There's health psychology, which works more in a health setting, works more in a hospital type setting, but can also, doesn't have to be a hospital setting. Don't know too much about health psychology. Social psychology is looking at how people interact and also how an individual interacts differently because people are watching them, if that makes sense. How people interact in a public environment or like in a social environment. So there's like the bystander effect, where I think it's the bystander effect, I'm probably going to screw it up, but let's start again. The more people that are at a scene, the less likely you are to do something about it. So let's say someone needed first aid on the street, they're just lying there. The more people that are surrounding the area, the less likely that someone is to actually act on that. Excuse me. So if there's only, if it's only the person and you, then you're much more likely to actually do something. Or if it's just like you and one other person, whereas if there's heaps of people around, you're thinking, oh, well, someone else will do it. Like, so social psychology sort of looks at those sort of phenomenons and like why people do that. Like people would think, oh, okay, there's heaps of people around, so at least one person's going to do it, but that's what everyone's thinking. So social psychology is quite interesting. And then there's like evolutionary psychology. I'll just go through two more. Evolutionary psychology looks at how the brain's developed over centuries, millions of years, I don't know, over the evolutionary cycle. I think there's a lot more to evolutionary psych, but I don't know too much about it. And then there's even like little niche areas like marketing psychology. So like, how do people respond to marketing? Where should my product be positioned on a shelf for it to have the most likelihood that someone will buy it? Those sorts of things. So psychology can literally be in any area of business or marketing or sports or, any area of life really. So that's what I love about psychology. It's so broad and there's so many different areas that it can take you. So fast forward to now. Fast forward to now, I have finished my Bachelor of Behavioural Sciences, which is sort of the first step to psychology. So psychology is quite complex. Like, you need a bachelor's degree, and then you need your honours, and then you need either a master's or a PhD. This is turning more into a psychology information session. But so I have the bachelor. I started my honours, but I decided not to go ahead at this point, just because it is quite a what's it called? Like a financial investment, time investment, that I didn't think I needed right now, because I want to sort of go down the business pathway, see where that takes me, and then I always have the option to come back to my honours. I actually have 10 years to go back without any question, like don't have to reapply or anything. So I'm very fortunate about that I've basically secured a position for 10 years. But yeah, you can go on to then masters, which is more of a clinical based. Let me drink some water. Which is more of a clinical based, not clinical based, but practical. Like, you're working with clients. So if you actually want to work with clients, you have a master, like you get a master's, you apply for a master's. If you want to work more in the research setting, yeah, pretty much. If you want to work more in the research setting, writing articles and running experiments, that sort of thing, then you would do the PhD route. And this is all Australian as well. I think it's different for every country. But, you know, a lot of people in Australia, when they start psychology, or if they're thinking about doing psychology, they sort of think you have to, well, when I started, I thought I had to have my master's and then do my PhD, but it's like two different routes. So you can either do your master's or your PhD, or you can do a combined if you want to not have a life for 5 years. But a good way to go if you want to do both research and practical, which is sort of the path that I was going down at one point. But I don't think I can mentally handle that right now. But yeah, so I've finished my Bachelor of Behavioural Sciences. I did that. I finished that last year. Then it's this year. I also did my Cert 3 in fitness last year. So that was when I was planning on starting my business, starting my group fitness classes, outdoor group fitness classes. I was living with my mum at the time, and I don't know, there was lots of things sort of holding me back. But the big thing was that I was going to be moving soon. Like, I wanted to move back to Brisbane. So I was sort of like, oh, I don't really want to start now because then I'll be moving. So there was a lot of things that I think mainly mental that were holding me back though. So this next, this season, let's call it, not physical season, but Psych Phyt season, let's call it, is going to be the time when I open my first outdoor fitness class. Operate. Yeah, when I do my first fitness class, which is very nerve-wracking, but it will be exciting. And, I need to just come from a place of service and, think about my clients rather than worrying about if I'm going to make a fool of myself or if I'm not going to know what I'm doing and things like that. Because, It's not that complicated. It's fitness. I've done it for so many years. You know, if I go in with a plan, then I can, you know, have a base, and hopefully people have fun, and that's all I can hope for. And I have actually just signed up for my Cert 4 in fitness, so that's very exciting. I think that'll also give me a bit more confidence in actually having the knowledge to answer people's questions. I think that's one of the main things. Is I feel like if I start this group fitness class, then everyone's going to think I'm like a professional in the area, whereas I feel like I'm definitely not. And I want to be able to answer people's questions and, you know, conduct movements and classes and create programs that actually have meaning behind it. Like, I want to actually say, okay, like, we are doing this movement because it helps in this way, or it's more effective to do it this way rather than this way, or if you want to target this muscle, do it this way. If you want to target this muscle, do it this way, and just be more knowledgeable in that area. So doing my Cert 4 will help with that. So that's exciting. So I'm doing that with the National Health and Fitness Academy. I think that's what it is, NHFA. So I'm really excited. I've signed up. So it starts in August, like the practicals start in August, and my theory component is already open, so I can do that whenever I like. So that's exciting. I also currently work in events, as I previously mentioned. I am working at the Queensland Museum at like a Lego exhibition. Very exciting. So I'm contracted to that event, not with the museum. I'm contracted like by an external events company. So once that finishes in about 2 and a bit weeks, then I don't have a job. Woohoo! So that's exciting. That means I can put more time into Psych Phyt and into my training as well. Because another exciting thing that's coming up is I'm hiking 30 kilometers this weekend in 3 days. So it's called the Kokoda Challenge. Yeah, that's it. It's called the Kokoda Challenge. It's on the Gold Coast. So it's essentially mimicking the Kokoda Trail in Papua New Guinea. And it's to raise money for the Kokoda Youth Foundation, who do basically help youth to build their confidence. And, you know, they do hikes, they do volunteering, they do a bunch of different workshops and leadership activities and things like that. So that's pretty cool. So raise money for that. But I also just love challenging myself. So I've done it previously. I've done it a couple of times now. So the first time I did it, I signed up for the full 96 kilometer with 3 amazing ladies that I met online, which is awesome. And I only made it to 48 kilometers because I had like massive blisters on my ankles, but that's just an excuse. So I dropped out at 48, and then the next, like a mini event I did was 30 Ks. And then this year I'm doing the 30K because it was sort of a last minute thing, and me and my friend were like, let's just do the 30K. So that'll be fun. It should take us about, 8 to 9 hours, and it starts at 2 p.m. So it's supposed to be like a twilight hike. So we start in the day and then finish at the night time. So I'm, currently getting all my things organized. All my stuff's just on my bed, like laid out, what I need to take. And I'll be going shopping, getting some snacks. I don't know why I haven't taken this snack before, but literally lying in bed the other night, I was like, oh my God, I should take like pikelets, like those little pikelets. I'm like, that's such a good idea. So that was my, like, when you're lying in bed and you're like, oh my God, let's do it. So I wrote that down. I was like, pikelets and Nutella. So that's what I'm going to take. That's my main snack. Obviously 8 to 9 hours, I'll be having a lot more snacks than that, but that's my excitement for the weekend. That's on Saturday. So I haven't really trained for it, to be honest. I've been training in other areas, but not hiking specific. So it'll be a bit of a challenge, but that's the whole point, right? I'm very much like, just sign up, worry about it later. So 3 days before the event is later. So now I'm worrying about it. No, not really. It's fun. And I've done it before, so I'm like, I can do it again. We'll be right. And then also, this is what I'm really scared about. I have signed up for my first fitness challenge, or not challenge, fitness competition next weekend. So imagine like a High Rocks style event. There's 4 stations, and in between each station we have to run 800 meters, so like 2 laps around this oval. And I briefly looked at it and I was like, yeah, that looks awesome, I'll sign up. I signed up like a week ago and it's next weekend, and people have been training for this for a long time. And I looked at it, I was like, yeah, that's fine, I can do all those movements. And then I looked at the weights and I was like, oh, okay, I can't do some of those movements. So, well, I can, but I struggle a lot. So now I'm sort of looking at it and I'm like, I wonder how many people are going to be at this event. Like, I don't know if it's a small event. I don't know if there's going to be like hundreds of people there. But I guess I'll just give it a go. And I think that's the excitement of it. Like, I honestly just want to finish it. Like, even if I come last, I don't mind. There'll be a part of me like, oh no, everyone's looking at me. But like, I think, yeah, I'll give it my best shot. The main thing I'm worried about is the plate thrusters. So it's a 15 kilo plate and my hands are a little bit small. So I'm worried that the plate is going to be like this thick. And I think just like trying to hold it with sweaty hands is going to be a nightmare. But, you know, that's the small things, the small worries in life that you can get over, and it's fun. So I'm just gonna, give it my best shot and see how I go. So I'll try and sort of like, I want to start doing more social media content and being like one of those people who film themselves doing workouts and stuff. You know, I don't really like being on camera, but I want to start doing it more, and you know, even if it's just for myself to be able to see how much I'm improving. So yeah, because so embarrassingly, I'm going to tell you my my squat weight that we did back squats yesterday, and we were doing our 5 rep max, and I got 40 kilos, yay, which is not very much, but I want to start recording this sort of stuff, because like in even a year's time or 2 years time, I'm going to look back and be like, wow, like that was like a really hard weight for me now, like back then. And now look, I'm lifting like 100 kilos. Like, I got this. So being able to see how far I've come is, you know, that's the most awesome thing. And that's what I love about running, because, well, I don't like running. Running is horrible, but it's really easy to improve. So lifting, I find, is pretty hard. So to improve like small kilos of weight when you're lifting, I don't know, personally, I see very little improvement over time. So that can be discouraging at times. Now I'm pushing a lot harder. I'm seeing the improvement a lot faster, but still it's quite slow. But with running, Like I can literally improve by 2 kilometers every week if I tried. Like they say to increase your distance by 10% every week. So I'll skip into my running assessment. So he told me that usually people will increase by 4%, increase by 10% per week their kilometers, and then taper off about 20 to 30%, and then do another 4 weeks of 10% increases. So like that's a pretty significant increase. So let's say you ran 10 kilometers this week, and that's a big week for you. That's awesome. Then next week, increase it by 10% is 1 kilometer. So now next week you're doing 11 kilometers. Week after that, you're doing about 12 kilometers. So like ultimately, if you're doing like a 50K week, then the next week you're doing a 55K week. So the increases are easier and further to get to. I'm not saying running is easy. It's definitely not easy. But the improvements, I think the improvements you can more tangibly see like in front of you. So I did my first half marathon last year, and that was after doing my first 10 kilometers the year before. And now I'm doing my first marathon this year. So I went from 10 kilometers to half marathon to marathon in 3 years. So, and that was honestly, I should have trained a lot more, and I definitely should have trained more for my marathon next month. But hey, we can't go back in time. We can just learn from our mistakes. So I lost track of where I was going, but so I'm doing my marathon next month, August 11. It's now July 10, July 11 from when I post this. So exactly a month away. And I actually want to do, I'm very excited. I actually want to do a YouTube video. So I've never done a YouTube video. I want to do a YouTube video of sort of my 30 days till my marathon, and like marathon prep type YouTube video. So I want to film myself just like a little clip every day and then just mush it all together. So like day 30 or day 1, I guess you would say, and then day 30 or day -30. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But like all the way up until my marathon, and then, you know, celebrate doing my marathon. But sort of try and, you know, I'm no expert, but, you know, just showing that anyone can do a marathon. Like I'm definitely not a built runner. So like I struggled just to even, actually this is a true story. Before I joined the military when I was 18, the furthest I'd ever run was 1 kilometer. And when you're at basic training, one of the runs that you have to pass is a 2.4 kilometer run. So the furthest I'd ever run was 1 kilometers, and then maybe about 5 weeks into our training, I ran a 2.4 because I wasn't allowed to stop. So yeah, that's kind of cool. That's more than double what I'd run before. And now my furthest run without stopping is a half marathon. And now I have 32 days to run a full. So I've definitely left my training a bit too slow, but that's okay because I'm getting it done and it's going to be fun. And the environment of an event is so much fun. Like just running by yourself can be very boring, and you know, it can be quite tough, and it's just a slog to just, you know, run all those Ks. But when you're at the event, it's so much more fun. Like you run the first 5Ks and you're like, oh cool, I'm already at the 5K. And then you're still running, and then you're like, oh my God, I'm halfway, I'm dying now. But there's always, well, it depends on the event you go to, obviously. But the Sunshine Coast Marathon that I'm doing, there's basically people like lined up along the whole way. There's people like ringing bells, and you know, they've got signs up and like cheering you on, and because your name is on your bib, people are like yelling at you like, go me again, yeah. So it's so cool to be in that environment, and I really love it. So I got my run assessed. Sorry, I'm going way over what I was expecting to, so I'm sorry for rambling on. I was going to say babbling, rambling on, but I got my run assessed, and it was really cool. Like I've never had my run properly looked at and like recorded. So I was running just like a few little laps while he was like recording how I run, and we found that I overstride for one. So to get that better, I need to increase my cadence. So the speed at which my feet are hitting the ground, I need to increase that. I am quite weak in like one of my glute muscles, probably all my glute muscles, let's be honest. One of my glute muscles, my hammies, and my calves, basically my legs. So he's given me some exercises to improve those. And also my hips. So I was getting hip pain when I run long distances. That was one of the main reasons why I went to get my run assessed, and also my knees were hurting after the run. So in like the recovery stages. So when I'm running, it's hard to show, but when I step, my hip pops up. And then when I step, my other hip pops up. So the movement in my hips was just due to the weakness in my glutes, and then that was sort of like pushing my leg, my upper leg, my thigh inwards, which would sort of over exaggerating this, but like bend the knee inwards. So, and then that was also causing my foot to roll in, or maybe my foot was rolling in, which caused all the rest. So it's all connected. So basically he's given me some exercises to strengthen my leg out and stop that sort of hip popping from going on. So that was really good and highly worth it. Actually, I'll give you the name. If anyone lives in Brisbane, you can go. It's called Peak Sports and Spine Centre. So it was really good. I highly recommend. And yeah, they gave me some really good advice and some exercises to do. And even like I did a training run yesterday after my run assessment, and even just increasing that cadence, I was like, oh, okay, like I can really feel like I felt more tall. I definitely didn't feel that dropping in my hip. So that was really good. And I totally understood everything that he was saying, and it really made sense. So yeah, highly recommend. But yeah, that's all I had really in my notes. And I hope you enjoyed the first filming of my film. I hope I wasn't. I need to watch this back, and I'm on a swivel chair, so I tend to swivel a bit too much, but and hopefully the sound quality was good. I don't even have a wireless mic. It's still connected to my phone. I don't have a fancy backdrop or anything, so it's just, I'm just getting it done and just doing the minimal, like not minimal, but like I'm doing what I can with what I have, basically. Because just a random not off topic, but a random point was, it's weird what motivates you, like what like ticks a little inspiration in your head. But I was watching an Instagram video of like a 15-year-old kid who who was basically like, what's your excuse? Like, he turned his phone around and he's like, I'm using a toilet roll to hold up my phone. Like, I don't have a fancy tripod. I just have a toilet roll. And then he like turned it back around. He's like, what's your excuse? Just hit play, like, just get it done. And I was like, that's so true. Like, I've been like sort of sitting here like, oh, okay, I need to get like one of those, I need to get like a trumpet. No, I need to get one of those microphones. You know, I need to get one of those like ring lights to make my face light up. Like, but you really don't. Like, all you need is a quiet space, a semi-quiet space with airplanes. You know, a bit of natural light. You know, your smartphone, which 98% of people probably have, and you just need to press play and get it done. Like, even this microphone was like $30. It's okay, the quality's not great, but you know, hopefully you can still hear me through my mumbling voice. But yeah, basically I just get it done and enjoy the ride. Like, just enjoy the process. And yeah, I don't know. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm going to just cut it off now because you're probably not even listening anymore. So enjoy, have a good night, and I'll see you all next week.